How's it going, MMOHuts community? This is Dizzy PW here. Last week, I got to go down to the KOG Games office in beautiful Southern California to check out Elsword's newest addition to the game, Add. Now, in the words of GM Moshup, who's kind enough to take me through a tour of the new character and his abilities, Add isn't your typical L gang cool, like, oh, I'm trying to save the world guy. No, he's more of a twisted bastard, and we got to see a little bit of his backstory, how his family was researchers of the Nasad, which, if you're familiar with the character Eve, is an ancient race that got wiped out after a 1,000-year war with humanity over the power source L. And not only are we going to show you some awesome PvP action with me on Add versus GM Moshup on his personal Elsword character, but we secured a pretty sweet giveaway for you guys. It seems that there's somebody down in the KOG Games Philippines office that makes these really wild miniature characters of the Elsword characters, and we managed to snag some extras of the two newest characters, Add and Elesis, that we're going to be giving away. So check the description below. Go to the forums, tell us which of the two you want. We're going to hold a raffle on Monday and announce the winners. Now, this is a US-only competition. The KOG Games office that we're dealing with here doesn't have jurisdiction anywhere else, so sorry, we're not allowed to hand these out anywhere else, as the case may be. But if you are in the US and you want to win some cool memorabilia to show off to your friends, you can't buy these anywhere else. This is the only way you're going to win this. So check out the description below, and let's jump in and take a look at what Add brings to the table. Oh, here's the close-up right here. Here's Elesis. And then here is the other one of Add. Pretty small, but they're pretty sturdy. They don't break easily. They put some real effort into this, and their level of detail, considering the miniature stature of them, is really nice. So I highly suggest you enter and get a shot at winning this. All right, it's gameplay time. Alright, so here we are on the character creation screen. As we were kind of hinting at, this guy Add is a glass cannon, but not in the full sense. He still has a lot of magic defense. It's kind of ironic that he's sort of built to be the ultimate hunter of Eve, and that he can take her ranged harass and isn't exactly the best guy for handling someone like Raven or Elsword unless you can play cheap and keep on the run. But I'm going to cut it here for a second and show you guys his little intro story as it takes place in the past, but it's leading you into the present in terms of where the actual storyline of the game currently is, and then it jumps you right back to the past again, which is where the game originally started. But I'm going to be quiet for a second, let you enjoy this.
어린 시절, 전쟁 속에 나는 모든 것을 잃어버렸다. 폐허로 변한 마을 속에서 감시를 피해 간신히 도망쳤지만 얼마 가지 못해 추적자들에게 따라잡혔다. 긴 도주 끝에 쓰러진 나는 절벽 밑으로 떨어졌고 그 후 깨어난 내 앞엔 고대의 유적이 자리하고 있었다. 시간 속에서 버려진 듯한 그곳에는 고대 나소디에 관한 방대한 지식들이 모여 있었고 나는 무언가에 이끌리듯이 나소디에 관한 지식을 쌓아나갔다. 다른 무엇에게도 지지 않은 힘을 갈구하면서 드디어 완성했다. 예상치 못한 이레귤러가 있었지만 남은 데이터만 모은다면 그런 관계는 미안하지만 계약은 파기다. 원리견. 재미있는 실험체가 나타나서 말이지. 당신은 더 이상 쓸모가 없어졌어. 고대 나소드라. 정말이지 흥미로운 실험체야. 너는 이 몸을 얼마나 즐겁게 해줄 수 있을까? 자, 실험을 시작하자.
Alright, I know I promised some PvE action, but looking back on our recorded footage here, I think that you guys are going to much prefer what me and GM Moshup mix it up with. Let's talk about what Add brings to the table in terms of his first-class skills, though, so that you can understand a little bit of what's going on for those people who have never looked up Add on the Korean servers before. So before we get into his actual skills, though, it helps understand his unique mechanics because they're pretty far out from anyone else in the L gang that you've seen before. Instead of building up 3 orbs over time from taking damage, dealing damage, unleashing skills and whatnot, or picking up items, you can open up your Fury at any time, but its strength is going to be dependent on your total DP you have, as your skills are going to draw from DP much more heavily when you're in your Fury mode. And there's also bonus effects that you can unleash called Dynamo points, with that little mechanical thing circulating. Add is kind of his Dynamo. It's this device that he developed in that library he was trapped in over those years, which unleashes the Nasad zone power against them or anyone else that gets in his way, for that matter. And you can get some really devastating attack multipliers going on if you got a lot of Dynamo points built up, such as, let's use his Void Breaker, his core skill, as the kind of the basis of this. So Void Breaker, 200 MP cost, 8-second cooldown time. It's a concentrated magnetic energy ball you shoot out, and it just pulls everything into a central point like a black hole. It can be used to recover your DP really fast, and it can also do some serious damage without costing you any DP when you have your Dynamo form activated. But if you have 3 Dynamo points and you use it, you can do 10% bonus damage for each of those points. It gets really crazy, and you can just obliterate people if you can actually catch them with it and build it up. Now, the key part in PvP is it's really hard to build up these stats because this character is so mana intensive. And actually surviving long enough to get enough hits off to build up your mana in PvP to do anything particularly impressive is not easy. I'm imagining getting some good MP regeneration on your gear might be helpful to alleviate this, but as it currently stands, you're going to be a 1 or 2 trick pony early on with Add, at least until he starts to get some of his second and third job skills and passives in here to kind of alleviate this issue. So on that note, even though he's kind of limited on using his skills, the fact that he's always in Fury mode means that if he does hit you, it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt a lot. Let's move on to some of his other skills besides just Void Breaker. His next one is Particle Shot, which I'm really fond of in PvP. Now this skill, you hold out your hand and you do a little charge up, and the longer you hold it, well, there's actually a passive you can pick up that allows you to charge this skill over time. I highly recommend doing it because not only is this a 30 MP cost, super cheap skill that you can just spam off a lot, it's also homing, and it has a pretty good chance of staggering your target, which makes it ideal for giving yourself an opening to lead into a combo in PvP. Beyond that, let's talk about when you actually have to get into choosing between skills here. So the first line, there's Particle Prism, which I decided to go with. It's relatively cheap. It's only about 100 mana. Super low cooldown again. That's the theme with him. He doesn't have time to wait around. And this is just like an AoE slow. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but since your biggest weakness is melee characters getting up in your face and tearing you up, it's useful to have this little prism pyramid to kind of dance around in to give yourself some breathing room. But if you choose to go without that skill, you can instead go with Energy Boom, which is more of a nuke skill to keep yourself out of harm's way and continue nuking without having to risk getting into closer melee combat, which can really backfire on you on this character. And if you have the Dynamo points to be used or to spare, this one only costs 1, you can actually increase the range of this and really stay far, far away from your targets. The next line decision is really tough, and it's kind of based on what you're going to be fighting. I went with Dynamo Research Overcharge, the passive, as this is the one that lets you charge Particle Shot, which is just so vital if you're up against a melee character that's just chasing you down. Make them think twice about it. But if you know you're going to be up against Eve or an Aisha, you can grab Mind Break, which is an active attack that will reduce their magical attack power and do a little bit of AoE damage. Super good for group fights. Just shut down your enemies before they can even hurt you. Your next choice is between two passives, and I'm not really sure which one of these I prefer just quite yet. I haven't spent enough time with Add to figure it out. But one is Dynamo Research Dismantle, which is a passive focused on improving your non-awakening mode. You get DP a lot faster here, and skills that don't use DP do bonus damage. The alternative is Dynamo Research Configuration, where you're not going to get DP as fast, but when you unleash it, it's going to do a lot more damage, and you're going to have reduced costs when you unleash it. So it's kind of a slower start, but a lot longer sustain of your high damage. That's what I went with in this fight, but as I said, I'm still kind of iffy on which one I prefer. The last option you have is your choice of nuke for the early levels. You've got Particle Accelerator, more of a PvP skill. It's a little bit cheaper MP than the alternative Neutron Bomb. It's also got an AoE stun to it, which is pretty nice if you're up in like a 3v3 team fight. Neutron Bomb, on the other hand, 300 MP. You'll almost never get that off in PvP, and even if you do, it probably wasn't worth the amount of effort it took to pull it off. And more of a PvE skill, honestly. Really cool one, though. If you want to show off to your friends, go with that. The other thing to note about Add that makes him pretty interesting is that he can just float in midair for as long as he has MP. Now, the longer you do it, the more exponential in speed you'll burn your mana. So it's not something you can do forever. But it's amazing how just a tiny bit of hang time can dodge out of the way of a lot of Elsword and Raven's attacks, except for when you have the giant head, which I seem to be cursed with the entire fight with Moshup. Beyond that, I would just say that he's a really fun character if you're a thinking person. You kind of have to be sadistic and like to pick apart your opponent's fighting style. You really got to get into character with him, know the animations ahead of time, know what someone's likely to do, and just jump out of the way with his Q whenever you can to keep him guessing. He's got a lot of skills to get behind people, but when he gets into range, he's really vulnerable. So you got to know your combos and make sure you get that knockdown and then get away and set up for your next combo. He's not someone I recommend just going full on again and again and again. It's not going to get you anywhere. Picking up power-ups is a big deal with him. If you can get speed, it's really, really beneficial. If you can get magic damage, anything that amplifies his already intense magic power output will pay dividends all the way through the fight. And then the rest of the time, you're just going to be trying to stay alive long enough to get enough MP to actually unleash something in fights, because it's not easy. You're going to burn a lot of it just on the hang time. A couple of even his auto attacks seem to burn MP, so that's not easy to keep it up. And you're going to be a bit of a one-trick pony. Hopefully we get his bonus classes out soon, because there's some kind of Nasad armor that gives you new twists and turns on his existing skills. I'm not 100% sure how that plays out yet, but I feel like he's kind of a two-dimensional character, not to make a joke on a side-scrolling brawler game, but there's definitely a piece of him missing. I really got a kick out of the storyline with him. They play him out a lot differently than the other characters. He's not a good guy. He's sadistic. He's got that really creepy thing going on with his multi-screens. Kind of, I don't know what he does in that room alone staring at all those pictures of Eve, but it can't be anything good. And he's gonna change up PvP for sure. I know that there's a lot of people that say he's already OP. I can attest that in his current form, without those other classes, that's not the case. He takes a lot of skill to play, and for someone like me that's used to dashing around with Arahan, his sudden stops throw off my own rhythm more so than my opponent's. But he's out now, so be sure to hop in the game and give Add a try.